Good morning, Morai Rabotai. We are continuing on Masechet Avodah Zarah. We are on Daf Yud Gimel, Amud Bet. On top of the Amud, about 5 lines down, we're discussing a Braita that was brought from Masechet Yuma Daf Samech Vav, that nowadays when a person is Makdish Kodashim, you're not supposed to because you don't have a Beit HaMikdash. But if you said, Harezeh Hekdesh, by mistake, right? You said, Harezeh Herem, or you accepted the Erech of someone, what do you do with the Hekdesh that you made? Imagine, you took an animal, you took a Behemah and said, Harezeh Hekdesh. Now you don't have a Beit HaMikdash. You just made this holy, and now it became a liability. Because if it roams around, it becomes a michshol if anyone benefits, personal benefit from it. So therefore you have to get rid of it, you have to kill it. Now, the way we said before, behemat akir, for our purposes, for our sugya, was that is meshir parsotav, that you cut off the bottom part of their feet, and that would be behemat akir. Surprisingly, the Braita in Masechet Yuma says that you just lock them up and they die from starvation. So Gemara challenged that. So Gemara says, why can't you just shecht it? That was the last piece that we did yesterday. V'nishchate mishchat, 4 lines down. And the Gemara said, Atu behu lide takala. You will come to takala because you see a regular geschachten animal, you see a regular shechted behemah. I say, well, that's good meat for tonight's shish kebab barbecue, and you may come to take if you're not understanding that this is not a regular shechita. You know, someone shechts it, and they want to get rid of the meat, and in the meantime, it comes to be used by people. These things happen all the time. There was a story that's brought in Tshuva, others that they had like 7 cows, they shechted, one of them came treif, and they put it on the other side of the makulin, of the shlachthaus, and by mistake, when they went for lunch break and so on, someone came and said, beautiful. And they took it and they mixed everything together. They said, why is this put over there on the other side? We need that side. They pushed it to the other shechted animals, and before you know it, now you have trouble. Now, says the Gemara, why can't we just chop it off to 2 pieces? That will be immediate death also, right? Chop it off to 2 pieces, and it will be immediate death. So that's not a bizayon, because it's not little by little dying away like chopping off the feet, because this way it will be an immediate death accomplished. So says the Gemara, that's a problem of a pasuk that says v'nitastem mizbechotam. The Torah says when you come to Eretz Canaan and you see all these Avodah Zarah, you should destroy their mizbechot, their altars. When and you break and destroy their statues, and then it says Lo ta'asun ken la'Hashem Elokechem. Do not do that to Hashem. Anything that has dvarim should be kedusha, you can't disgrace it, right? If you have a name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu written, he can't erase it. That's a disgrace. You're destroying something of kedusha, and hence says the Gemara, because this animal has been given kedusha. By you making it kadosh, if you chop it off like that, you're destroying a thing of kedusha. When you chop off something in the middle, that's considered like a way of destruction. So, but that by itself is a disrespect. So you may think that it's not bizayon because it's not little by little limping and bleeding and infecting and dying by cutting off the feet. But this is a different type of bizayon. What kind of killing is this that you're chopping it off and one piece falls on the other side, one piece falls on this side? That's like dismantling. It's when you tasdebet mizbechotam. You take the avanim, the stones of a mizbeach, of an altar, and you throw one here, you throw one there. That's destruction. Here also, you can't destroy in a disgraceful manner something of kedusha, and this is considered a dismantling of this respect, and therefore you cannot do that. So says the Gemara, Rava Amar. So that's the reason that you leave it to die. Nowadays, probably you would just maybe give it an injection and putting it down quietly. But again, in the time of Chazal, that would be the better of the ways. So says the Gemara, Lo ta'asun ken la'Hashem Elokechem. Rava amar mipnei shenireh kematil mum bekodashim. Rava says, you know why you can't be mashir parsotav? You can't cut off the feet. Because here you have an animal of kodashim, and when you cut off its ear, cut off a limb, that is giving mum a blemish to kodashim. Now there is a isur d'oraita of putting a blemish on kodashim. And this looks like you're putting a mum on kodashim. Says the Gemara, what do you mean looks like? This is putting mum on kodashim. 101. When you take a behemah that you just made or makdish for mizbach, you said harez ekdesh. So now this animal is ekdesh, and if you cut off a piece of its body anywhere, that is putting blemish on kodashim. So what do you say? It looks like you're putting a blemish. Nir'eh kematil mum bekodashim. Says Gemara, nir'eh. This looks like a mum. Mumaliyahu. This is a fantastic mum. You're cutting off its feet. But of course it's a mum. Says the Gemara, no. You know when it's isur, the oraita, to put blemish on an animal of kodashim, it's only when you have Beit HaMikdash you could bring it as a korban. So now when you put a mum on it, you put blemish on it, now you're stopping it from being able to be brought on top of the mizbeach. That is considered matil mum bekodashim, you're putting a blemish on a korban. But if you don't have the Beit HaMikdash, then it's not the Rabbanan, it's not Isur Deoraita, perhaps. So says the Gemara, okay. בזמן שבית המקדש קיים, דחזי להקרבה. השתא דלא חזי להקרבה, let lamba. You don't have the problem on a Deoraita level. So therefore, we call this nir'eh kematil mum b'kodashim. It looks like you're matil b'kodashim because nowadays we don't have the Beit HaMikdash. So this is the Gemara, v'le mekmatil mum b'ba'al mum. Let me give a preface a little bit here. What happens in the time of the Beit HaMikdash itself? If you have a behemah that you made it kadosh, and then it got a blemish. It got a blemish. Now you can no longer bring it as a korban to the Beit HaMikdash because it has a blemish. Can you say, well, once it has a blemish, let me cut off the other ear also, make it even? Can you do that? Absolutely not. There's an isur to put additional mum on a behemah of kodashim that's already baal mum. Right? So says the Gemara, why can't this be an isur deoraita of adding mum to a behemah that's already baal mum? What's the logic of the Gemara? The Gemara's logic is as follows. The Gemara says, you're telling me that this is not the isur deoraita because you already can't bring it to the Beit HaMikdash because you don't have a Beit HaMikdash, right? Therefore, it's a isur d'Rabbanan. That's what you want to say. Well, I could find you another scenario that you can't bring something to the Beit HaMikdash, and that is a behemah that's already a Baal Mum, already has a blemish. You also can't bring it to the Beit HaMikdash. Can you put a blemish on that animal? No, and that's a biblical level. You can't add another blemish, even though that you can't bring this animal to the Beit HaMikdash. So too, says the Gemara, this animal also, even though that you can't bring it to the Beit HaMikdash, it should be asur to put a blemish on it on a biblical level. So in other words, even though that you can't bring it to the Beit HaMikdash because there is no Beit HaMikdash, still should be asur deoraita to put a blemish on it. And hence, it should be asur to chop off its feet, not just because it's nir'eh, it's michzi kematil mum bekodashim. It looks like you're putting blemish, but it should be actually a biblical prohibition of isur matil mum bekodashim. That's what the Gemara is supposed to say. And the Gemara, I'm going to say it outside and we read it inside. The Gemara is going to answer, no, that's very different. That we say it's asur to put additional mum is because you at least could do something with the behemah that you made it hekdesh and it has a blemish. The blemish only does it that you can't take this animal and bring it as a korban on mizbeach. But you know what you could do with it? You could sell it and use the money for the Beit HaMikdash. So the money of it is a hekdesh that you could use for Beit HaMikdash. But nowadays, if you made something hekdesh, what are you going to do? You're going to sell it and then what? We don't have a Beit HaMikdash. So this animal is a dead end. There's nothing to do with it. It's categorically different than the example that you brought from an animal that was nikdash, that was made holy in the time of Beit HaMikdash. Because that animal, even if he has a blemish, you still could use it. So therefore, an additional blemish is a Yisur D'Oraita. But to this one, additional blemish, what are you going to do with the animal? You can't do anything. You're going to leave it to die anyways. There's nothing else to do with the animal. So therefore, putting an extra blemish or a blemish on it would not be a biblical level. Because this animal is a dead end. There's nothing to do with it. So this is Gemara. Let's read it now inside. The Afal gave the Lochazi Lakrava that a Baal Mum in the time of Beit HaMikdash would not be Ra'ui Lakrava, would not be fit for going on top of the Mizbeach. Asur still is Asur to bring it as a Korban. Baal Mum Nehi de Lochazi Legufe Ledami Chazi. When I answer, it says no. Baal Mum in the time of the Beit HaMikdash, even though you can bring it on top of the Mizbeach as a Korban, but you could sell it and use the Damim, the money of it you can use for the Beit HaMikdash. For Kodshim. But here, in our case, you cannot do anything with it. And therefore, because it's a dead end, if you put blemish on it, you have not damaged the Kodshim in any way. It's going to die anyway. So therefore, that's only a Isur. The Rabbanan, which the Gemara calls it Michzi, and it looks like Matil Mum Bekodashim. Fine. Now the Gemara says, Ashkeche Rabbi Yonah and Rabbi Eli de Kaya Pitcha de Sur. Rabbi Yonah found Rabbi Eli that was standing on the gateways of the city of Sur. We spoke about the city yesterday. Amale Katani Be'emati Akir Eved Mai. We spoke in this Braita that if you bought different items, if you bought, let's say, a Be'emah, you have to kill it. How about an Eved? Because the Braita also spoke about the case that you bought an Eved. Are you going to kill the Eved? I mean, that's not the same thing as a Be'emah. You're going to go kill a person just because you bought it on a day of the Chaga of the Goyim and Chazal want to make you fine you and give you a knas? You're going to kill a person? What do you do with that? Says the Gemara. That's a good question. Gemara says, wait a second. Yisrael lo kam bayal. He explains, continuing explaining the question, says, I don't have a question on a Yid. Right? Of course, you can't do that, but Eved Oved Kochavim Mai. If you have an idol-worshipping individual as your Eved, can you do something to them? And the Gemara says, no, absolutely not. Why? Amale. Ma kami bayalach. He said, I don't understand the question. Well, you have a Hava Amina that you could kill an Eved Oved Kochavim, even though that he is an Oved Kochavim. You can't kill it just because of a Knas. And it's not just the feeling, it's a Braita. Says the Gemara, Tanya, we learned in the Braita, Ha'ufte Kochavim, the people who worship idols. Vero'e be'madaka, and even Jews that are thieves. Right? Ro'e be'madaka, they shepherd be'madaka, sheep and goats. They usually, Gemara elsewhere says, that these are be'hizkat gazlanim. Right? They are thieves because they take their flock on the way to outside of city. They'll stay and benefit from fields of other people, and that's gezelah, that's stealing. Right? That was the whole machloket of Abraham's shepherds with Lot's shepherds that caused their final division, because Avraham Avinu felt that he was stealing from other people because the animals, they would let them graze on other people's fields. So that's considered a thief. So it says the Braita, Ovdei Kochavim, the idol worshipping individuals. We're going to have this again later on in Daf Chavav also, but the main place of it is Masechet Sanhedrin. The Gemara says, these groups of people, lo ma'alin velo moridin. You don't save them if they're in trouble, but you also don't deliberately biyadayim cause their demise, right? If they're falling into a pit, you don't go and push them down all the way. So you can't deliberately do damage to them, but you don't have the mitzvah av lo ta'amod al dam re'echa. There's a mitzvah that if you see a yid is in trouble and they could be in danger, there's a mitzvah av lo ta'amod al dam re'echa. You can't stand still. You can't be a standby onlooker to see the demise of your brother. You're mechuyav to jump and help them. But that's only re'echa be'torah u'mitzvot. That's someone that keeps Torah u'mitzvot. So if you have a yid that doesn't care about Torah u'mitzvot at all, he doesn't have that zchut, that extra zchut, that you have to drop everything and run to help. They're just a regular person. Right? A regular person, you're nice to them, but you don't have to drop to go help them out of your way. So therefore, lo ma'alin velo moridin. But it says lo moridin. You can't do anything deliberately to bring about their demise. So therefore, of course, in this case, you can't do that. So says the Gemara. We're now talking about the other Braita. The other Braita said you can buy from them in the day of the Chagam of the Goyim, Bema avadim ushpachot, Bema servants, maidservants, you could. So says the Gemara, is this Eved Israel or is this an Eved Goy? In other words, if you have a Yid that was captured, that was taken captive, and you want to save them by buying them, redeeming them from a Goy, and bringing them back to the community, bringing them to the family. I understand what kind of mitzvah that is, right? That's pidyon shvuim par excellence. So I understand that you could go into the day, to the market of the goyim on the day of their holiday to save a yid from a hand of the Avodah Zarah and bring him back to their community, to their family. I understand that. But can you buy an Eved of Ovdei Kochavim on the day of the Chag? What mitzvah is that? Because it has to be some sort of a mitzvah, right? That Braita who allowed this, all of the Braita is talking about things that we bend the rules for a good reason. So I understand if you're redeeming Pidyon Shvuim Ave Yid, that's a mitzvah, we understand. But what's the mitzvah of buying? Maybe it's just an Eved Yisrael that's mutar. The Gemara is asking. When it says avadim ushpachot, maybe only it should be mutar when you're redeeming a yid. So says the Gemara, maybe it's talking about the Oved Kochavim as well, that you could buy a servant. Amare, he said, mistabra Eved Yisrael. Says the logical discourse would be that's only Eved Yisrael. Why? The Eved Oved Kochavim, because if Eved of Oved Kochavim is mutar, Lemai mibaile. Why is that a mitzvah? In other words, you're bending the rules. The rule is you can't go on the day of the Chag of the Oved Kochavim to buy something from the marketplace, right? So now you want to bend the rule and say, oh, you could buy an Eved. Other things you can't buy, but Eved you. Why would that be mutter? To bend the rules. Kiata Ravin, when he came from Esau, he disagreed. He said no. He could buy even an Eved Oved Kochavim. He said in the name of Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Resh Lakish says, Afilu Eved Oved Kochavim. You could even do a purchase of an Eved Oved Kochavim. Why? Because you're doing the greatest chesed to this Eved. Because the Eved that's bought by a Yid, they do Brit Milah. They do Tevilah L'Shem Avdut, which is now at this moment when he has accepted it to become an Eved Kanaani, he has gotten his Brit Milah, he has gotten Tevilah, he becomes not a full Yid, but he becomes fully Chayav b'mitzvot, just like a woman. Any mitzvah that a woman is Chayav, an Eved Kanaani is Chayav. He is just absolved from the time-consuming positive mitzvot And therefore, he's absolved from those because he has to be working, doing stuff around, and therefore he would be absolved from it. But he is chayav. You know what you just gave him? You gave him olam haba that you can't even imagine. That's a mitzvah. That's tremendous, says Ravin.
Isn't that worse because now he's obligated to keep mitzvahs?
Well, that's a good question. That's a good question because we speak about this in Masechet Ketuvot, Yud Aleph. It's a debate there by Ger Katan whether it's zechut for him, it's not zechut for him. Eved be'efker anichale. You're bringing up a very valid point, which is very much involved with the sugya of gerut in Masechet Yevamot, Daf Memhe and on. And the specific question that you bring up is from Masechet Ketuvot on page 11. But disregarding that point, in essentially for him to become chayav b'mitzvot and now have the zchut of being a Jew is a tremendous thing. It's the greatest zchut that a person could have. So says the Gemara, Amar Ravashi says, wait a second. He says, okay, you want to tell me that you could buy an Eved because you're entering him under the wings of the Shekhinah, but the same right that says you could buy Behemah from them. Well, you're entering the Behemah also under the wings of the Shekhinah. So that's not the reason, he says to Ravin. He says, okay, I hear you saying good, but that can't be the reason because that doesn't explain why it's mutar to buy Behemah. So it's a different reason. What's a different reason? Says Gemara, Elamishum miutaihu. Anything that you could diminish from the power of idol worshipping individuals. Chazon Ish has such a beautiful piece. He writes, the person that lives as a human being in this world is given the zchut of living because he is a creature that understands the creation of the world and the mastership of HaKadosh Baruch Hu over his creation. Right? Motar Adam min b'ma'ayin. Our neshama, our understanding. Rambam thinks that this is such a pashut, such a simple fact of life, that if you don't stand on this truth on your own, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has created the world, and that Hashem doesn't have form and shape, and He's the master and the creator and the governor of the world, you don't have olam haba, even if you're tinok shenishba. In other words, if a person doesn't keep Shabbat because he was never taught, say he's tinok shenishba. But if you don't believe in Hashem because you were not taught, Rambam, according to the conventional understanding, this is the famous Rav Chaim Brisker that said in Yiddish, that Nebacha Afikoros Zoichara Afikoros, that even if you're Afikoros, that someone does not believe in Hashem, because you're Nebach, you're an unfortunate case. No one taught you, as Oichar Afikoros is also considered an Afikoros, because a person's core element in life is recognition of his purpose in this world. If you're a thinking individual, you will understand that, right? So says the Chazon Ish, that's the stuff that gives you olam haba, that's the stuff that gives you the rights of living. And therefore, if you could diminish the power of those individuals who negate and go against the existence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu by promoting Avodah Zarah, that by itself is a mitzvah. So if you have the power and the wealth as in God-fearing individuals versus the power, the power being given to Avodah Zarah and having the gravitas of wealth and power, you take that away. You take that gravitas away. You take that the power and wealth away. That by itself is a miniature mitzvah, and that's something important as well. The memati, here also you're taking away, you're diminishing their power, and therefore it's shari. Two dots. Says the Gemara. Rabbi Yaakov Zavin Sandal of Rabbi Yirmiyah Zavin Pita. Rabbi Yaakov, you see this from the Gemara in Kiddushin, Daf Yutet, other places as well, that both Rabbi Yaakov and Rabbi Yirmiyah were students of Rabbi Yochanan. Knowing that actually makes you understand the flow of the Gemara that we're going to speak about Rabbi Yochanan. But this is two stories of two people, two students of Rabbi Yochanan, who actually went to the marketplace at the Goyim, and they bought, on the day of their Chaga, regular things. One of them bought a pair of shoes, and the other one bought some bread. I mean, we just said that according to everyone, it's a problem. According to Rabbi Yochanan, for sure, this is The Rebbe is Rabbi Yochanan. And what did Rabbi Yochanan say, disagreeing with Resh Lakish? That not only it's asur to benefit from Avodah Zarah, but it is also asur to benefit the Avodah Zarah. You cannot support. So therefore, if you're paying taxes, if taxes are being taken away and given to the temples of Avodah Zarah to establish and glorify the Avodah Zarah, that's asur. Right? Now, I have exceptions to the rule that we discussed, but buying a pair of shoes or bread, that should be asur. Right? Now, each one of them sees the other one with the buy that they had, and they start fighting. Right? And this is pretty sharp and interesting. Says the Gemara. So Rabbi Yaakov bought a pair of shoes, sandala. Rabbi Yirmiyah Zavan Pita, Rabbi Yirmiyah bought some bread. Each one of them told to his friend, Yatma, Yatom, you the orphan, right? Avad Rabah Chachi, your Rebbe would do such a thing. You're doing a Yisur. Why is he calling them Yatom? Because Talmidim are called Banim, right? Your students are called your children. So if you deviate from your Rebbe, that's like a person that doesn't have a father, doesn't have a tradition of halacha. It says, you're a student of my Rebbe, you're a student of Rabbi Yochanan. How dare you? That's asur, right? And the other one says, how dare you? Now turns out that both of them did something mutar, each one of them misunderstood the other one. How so? Says the Gemara. Amale, idach, yatma, the other one also said, yatma, you the yatom. Avad Rabba Chachi, your Rebbe would do such a thing. Both of them bought from a private citizen. They didn't go to the marketplace. So therefore taxes were not taken away. And therefore it will be mutar. Because the whole problem is the taxes. Remember, we're talking about the case that you're not buying from Oved Avodah Zarah. That would be asur anyways. You're buying from someone that's not celebrating the Chaga of the Goyim, but his store is adjacent to that city, and therefore taxes are being given to the Avodah Zarah, right? So if you're buying from a regular citizen that he doesn't celebrate, and he's not paying taxes, that's mutar, no problem. So each one of them bought from a private citizen, but when they saw the other one coming from the main city, they thought that they probably bought from. Now, how in the world they did not give the benefit of the doubt? That's a different question. There's a Gemara, Masechet Shabbat, Daf Kuf Chav Zayin, that when you see somebody, you have to give them the benefit of the doubt, especially if they're frum. Rambam categorizes this with three different categories, and regular frum person, certainly you have to give them the benefit of the doubt. But nevertheless, says the Gemara, each one of them thought, they thought that my friend bought it from the merchant, from the store, and therefore they did something wrong. This that's asur is only when you buy from a merchant, an official salesman, that the government or the kumarim, the priests, they are on top of their case and they charge them taxes. The shakli michsamine, that the government charges them taxes for avodah zarah. But if you buy from a private citizen in their home, that's not a problem. That would be mutar. Also said, Rab Abba, the son of Rabbi Abba said, if Rabbi Yochanan would be living in our generation now, right, he would even make the private citizen sales asur, have a asar, he would make it asur because the government was cracking down on the private sales people, right? So even though that they were not merchants, but they were official store owners, right? Or official salespeople. In other words, everyone knew, you go to this alley over here, there's this person that's selling. Now, it's not in the marketplace, but he's an official salesperson, even though that he's a private citizen. They would even charge taxes from them. And says Rab Abba, the son of Rabbi Abba, that Rabbi Yochanan would say that that's also asur, because it's not a matter of being a merchant, it's a matter of, are you a tax-paying citizen when you're an official salesperson, right? So says the Gemara, because be'atra de shakli michsa afilu bibal habayit hava asar, in the place that the government cracks down on individuals who become official salespeople, he would prohibit that as well. So says the Gemara, ela inhu hechizabun. So these two people, Rabbi Yirmiyah and how did they do it? The shop for the shoe and for the bread. How did they do it then? They're students of Rabbi Yochanan. Says the Gemara, they bought not even from that. They bought literally from a household person, right? A backyard sale or something unofficial, which the government cannot track down and cannot crack down on. So that's what they bought from Zavun Mibalabayit She'eno Kavua, and that's what they used as their source of buy, and that explains also why each one of them maybe suspected the other one, because it is such a narrow thing. You're not buying from the marketplace, and you can't even buy from individuals who sell in their homes, but they're official salespeople. What are the chances that someone is going to buy from? Go find, it's like a needle in a haystack, to find somebody that happens to be selling this item that you happen to need. So that's why each one of them thought maybe the other one bought from an actual salesman, and they suspected them. That perhaps helps that Gemara in Masechet Shabbat that we just asked from. But nevertheless, next Mishnah is going to be a fascinating topic of things that is asur to sell to the goyim across the board all of the days of the year. In other words, there are certain things that are used for Avodah Zarah. When a goy buys those items from you, you know that most probably they're using it for Avodah Zarah, and hence is asur to sell it to them, even in the course of the regular days of the year, which is going to be the discussion we're going to be having in the days to come. And maybe we will segue to having a practical halacha shiur of things that you can and you cannot do as an American citizen dealing with churches and with the Christians and Buddhists and Mormons and so on and so forth, those who are considered over the Avodah Zarah. If you're a contractor, can you build for them? If you are an owner of a real estate owner, can you rent to them for those purposes? Those are things that Be'ezrat Hashem we will discuss in the days to come.